Good afternoon, everyone. And it's an incredible pleasure today to welcome again, should I say, Captain Dan Blanchard to our behind the scenes interview series. So for anyone who has attended our conference last year, I have no doubts that you will remember Captain Dan, who definitely embodied the spirit of expedition cruising during our conference. And I am particularly pleased to have you today because I know that UnCruise Adventures are celebrating a big anniversary this year. So this conversation, I'm sure, will go well beyond the ships and destinations, and we will be reflecting on early days, the lessons learned on the water, the philosophy that has shaped UnCruise into one of the most respected expedition cruise operators in the world in the destinations you serve. And of course, from leadership and legacy to the community, conservation, curiosity. This is really a very special opportunity to hear the personal story of the person behind it. So Captain Dan, before we dive into where UnCruise goes and how it operates, I want to start with asking you, how did all this start?
That's a good question, isn't it? I mean, for me, it really started as a very young lad. My family bought a tugboat when I was 4 years old, and that became our summer home and our winter every weekend. It was an old wood tugboat that was in a place called Everett, Washington, and we rebuilt that vessel for 18 years, and that entire time I was on the water. So yeah, I kind of had it since a very early age. I've been involved in not only the pleasure and joy of being on the water, but in the industry as well.
And so when did the penny drop? Like, when was the sort of moment when you said, okay, well, actually, it's not only about my personal lifestyle. Let's start a company that goes to these wonderful places and do what you do now.
Well, there's a lot of water or under the bridge on that question.
Okay.
but I would say that where I think the bug to see the world started, it really had to do with, kind of at that age of being informed, when you start to be, 12, 13, 14, where all of a sudden life starts to kind of have some fullness to it and understanding. And I was a big fan of reading Jack London books. Farley Mowat, a Canadian author, just thrilled my heart reading. I can't tell you how many times I reread a book called Gray Seas Under by Farley Mowat. And then, later, or right about that time when I was 12, a guy named Robin Lee Grant had sailed around the world at age 15. And I was committed to beating his record. I told myself, I'm going to be 14 when I leave. About 35.
Okay.
But those books just set off what I already knew was a life I wanted to be on the water, or at least I thought I did, into, wow, you could have these outrageously fun adventures. And, that's kind of what started it all.
Brilliant. And so, what did those early years teach you about about the experience, and what continues to guide you today, the way you organize these trips and lead them at the UnCruise Adventures?
Yeah, I think, in the early days, I was fortunate enough to be a Sea Scout boy, and and in fact, I just met with many of my old buddies from childhood, and we shared the stories of what it was like growing up, beachcombing and picking oysters and exploring new areas of Washington State and Canada aboard a little 29-foot ketch. And but what we learned is, tragically, we had people that died around us because they didn't know how to act upon the sea. And we salvaged a few bodies, unfortunately. And so early on, safety was just drilled into my head. And because you can't go through that kind of experience as a young person and not have it mark you for the rest of life. And so, the balance of exploration and adventure wrapped in a cloak of appropriate safety is really, I think, the key for not only UnCruise Adventures, but anyone in the expedition network area. So yeah, how that evolved, was just, an overtime thing, for sure. When I was in my early mid-20s, I was importing sailboats from Taiwan.
Okay.
And yeah, and
As you
that,
do.
yeah, well, we did good, but that time had its moment. And but I still have one of our display boats from that business effort, and that's the one I sailed around the world. And someday I'll be giving to my granddaughter. So
Okay.
I'm not doing this just as a business; it's my lifestyle.
Brilliant. And of course, you know, during our conference, you left a lasting impression to our members. What did it mean to you to personally be recognized at the Lifetime Achievement Award by your peers in the sector?
Well, first of all, I was shocked.
I actually can see it in your background.
I was so shocked. Yeah, that's right. Right here. Boom.
Brilliant. Yeah.
And, you know, I was super shocked. And I guess I am such a young at heart guy. I mean, yesterday I walked 16 miles, and usually I walk 7 to 8 every day, and I walk hard and I pump hard. And so I'm a relatively young 66-year-old guy. So I didn't even think like a Lifetime Achievement Award.
Well, you know, it's not the number of days or years you count, it's really what you put into them, right? So
for sure. But you know how a young at heart person feels. It's like, well, heck, you know, I'm as fit as I was at 40.
Brilliant. And during the conference, you also shared with us the how you were adopted into an Alaskan Tlingit tribe, and I'm sure it's not something that happens lightly. So how did that experience change the way you think about operating specifically in Alaska, which I think is probably closest to your heart, and how you engage as a business and personally with local communities?
Yeah, I think that, you know, the part about how we engage as a business was already there. In other words, I was asked to join my brother Joe's family and tribe because we were already not only respected, but very much in front of, you know, not only native rights, but just being good community members. And, you know, that really comes through, and this kind of fits into some other thoughts for those of us in expedition travel about, you know, instead of going into a community and saying, okay, we need dancers, we need this, a better thing, and the way it should be, is to go into a community and say, you know, we'd love to come in with your permission. And we even did that in Ketchikan, which is a large city where my brother Joe is in Saxman, right next there. But I think part of our experience as a company is, you know, you always ask permission first. You always ask about what do you need, and hopefully that's what our guest wants as well, and what the company. So I think that, you know, what started out as a business relationship and grew into a deep friendship for so long turned into the adoption. And I was really just, again, amazed when he called up and say, so I'm adopting the governor of the state, and I want to include you in that adoption. And like, what? Joe, what? But I think I've shared with you that my native name means spicy little one.
Yes. Like I remember as well, one of the delegates, Emma, she's like, small and spicy.
Yeah, she just right. Small and spicy.
Small and spicy, yes.
Instead of a big cup of coffee, it's like, you know, an espresso.
Yes. Brilliant. And then, so, you know, working with the local communities and engaging with them by asking the questions how we can support you. Was there anything that really surprised you when you just started, or like what was the answer? Probably counterintuitive, and a lot of people would think of asking what people need when they receive the guests coming from perhaps different cultural backgrounds, and you know, bringing their worlds with them.
You know, I think the most dramatic meeting that ever took place, I went over to this little island called Molokai 26 times in Hawaii before I arrived. And, you know, that's a very culturally sensitive and expressive island, probably one of the most in all of the Pacific, but certainly the most in Hawaii. And when I went there and met with the Kupuna, I'll leave his name out right now, but we were sitting down at a table having a drink together with 3 or 4 tourism representatives from Hawaii. And he says, "Why are you coming here? Why? And you're going to have to work hard to come here. We don't want you."
Okay, that's a challenge.
That's a challenge. And that was in one of my first meetings, like meeting 2 or 3 that I had been there. And you know, what they didn't want is they didn't want a vessel that comes in for 5 hours and leaves. They wanted an immersive thing. They wanted us to, you know, stay for multiple days, but not impact the community. They wanted us to respect this and this and this. And I mean, it was a long, long process. I've never traveled 26 different trips to a destination before our ships arrived like I did in Hawaii because of that cultural sensitivity.
Interesting. And I mean, for those listeners who are maybe quite new to UnCruise Adventures, your sort of big destination is obviously Alaska, but you are one of actually the only expedition cruise operator that I know of that goes to Hawaii, as well as having a very strong and long-term program in Baja California, Galapagos, Panama, and Costa Rica. Is that correct?
Yeah, we're Costa Rica and,
okay.
and Panama. We're back at. We're also going to be headed down on the Columbia River again. That's kind of a post-pandemic restart. Yeah.
Brilliant. Talking about the Hawaii, because I think Hawaii in people's minds have a very sort of monodimensional idea of what the holiday in Hawaii looks like. What do you think your clients, or what do you know your clients are most surprised about going to Hawaii on an expedition ship? That they come off and say like, wow, okay.
Yeah, I would say it's I don't know if surprise is the right word, but I would say intrigued with and interested in. What they don't expect is the deep cultural immersion. We spend a lot of time on Molokai, which is kind of it's not only where the Polynesians first came to, but it's like the start of the hula was on Molokai, and Molokai fed all of Hawaii with, you know, multiple, I think it's over 30 fish ponds, and the culture is still alive. You can go into the village of Kanakakai and people are walking around in traditional garb, not because they're getting ready for tourists, just that's what they do. And so I think people are intrigued with that. Also, what they see of Hawaii, you know, from a typical visitor standpoint, is a resort with a beach and everything within the resort, and you don't really have to leave the resort. In fact, oftentimes the bigger brands make it the resort sits all by itself out in the distance, right? So it's hard they're not connected to the people as much. So I think that when they first come with us, it's kind of a revelation about, one, how beautiful the land is even in the cities. I mean, the land is beautiful, right? In the sense of tropical destination, but it's really, you know, like the Napili coast and the Nepali coast and like the backside of cruising Molokai. And I mean, these are true life experiences. And of course, then there's just tremendous whale activity.
Really?
Which it's the same. Well, it's interesting that, you know, one of the first whale groups that were preserved, in other words, they outlawed whaling from in the United States, was the group between Alaska and Hawaii, the humpbacks. And that group finally came back, and it's, you know, that some feel that it's at historic norms. And so, you know, those humpbacks go to Hawaii, most of them. Some go to Mexico too, but most go to Hawaii from Alaska. So we get to see the same whales, and that's kind of a joy. And now that we have citizen, you know, tools like what's the
Happy Whale, Orca, yeah,
that we use a lot, we can actually sit and say, you probably saw this whale in Alaska. And that's also a joy. But off the big island of Hawaii, the marine mammals are off the hook. You see whales out there. yeah, of course, manta rays and other species as well. Hawaiian monk seals are coming back in a big way. We're seeing them almost on every trip now, and which is a phenomenal achievement. So, you know, conservation has definitely taken a hold in Hawaii, and things are coming back.
And talking about Hawaii, so just those who may not know, I mean, when do you start the trips? How long are the itineraries for? And what's the best season to travel? Is there a season? I mean, obviously you will probably travel at certain time of the year, but just talk us through a little, because, you know, for me, it's so far away sitting here in London. It's a
Well,
place I would love to go, but, you know, it's
we're
just, yeah.
actually, after 15 years of sailing, 16 years of sailing in Hawaii, we're changing our itinerary starting next year, meaning 2027. And we're going to be basing out of Oahu to make flights easier, because almost all international flights go into Oahu. And we're going from a 7 to a 10-night itinerary. And we'll operate year-round outside of the months of August and September, which is the peak hurricane. And of course, we have to have a month or two each year to haul the boat out and do all the good work. So it's a good time during hurricane season to do that.
And how big is the ship you take travelers to Hawaii on?
Well, we don't take them to Hawaii. You have to
Well,
fly
I mean, as in, sorry, yes,
yeah.
that's
yeah. Yeah, so it's one of our smallest vessels. It's the 36 passenger Safari Explorer, and we keep it. We're tempted, and we would mind adding capacity there, but you know, our agreement with the community of Molokai, we are happy to say, limits the number of passengers, and I'm really happy that Molokai has not brought on larger ships, because they want to keep their culture, and we are partnered with them, and you know, we love our friends in Molokai. They're family to us, and you know, so we're sticking with what we intended to in the beginning. The only thing we're doing is we're actually moving to Oahu, one, to be able to get the well, there's a couple of reasons, but the Australian, New Zealand, Japanese traffic comes in through Oahu during the summer primarily, and that makes an easier connection. But also, as time goes on, you know, flights to this little island called Molokai have been reduced, where locals are having trouble getting flights in and out. So part of our, you know, help to them is, okay, we'll move to a different island so you all can get on and off the island easier.
Amazing. And I think, you know, 10 days as well is a great decision for those international travelers, because it's a very long way to come, especially from Europe. You probably want to spend a bit more time and to really immerse in the destination as much as you can, and probably tie a couple of days before and after staying, you know, on the land-based activities. Let's move to another geographical region. I think we both share passion for Baja California, and you just came back from there. Tell us more.
I think, you know, Baja California and the Gulf of California, people call it the Sea of Cortés, but now that to really name it properly, it needs to be the Gulf of California, because Cortés was kind of a not such a good guy to that area. So the Mexican people really prefer it called the Gulf of California. But I think it is the most understated destination I've probably ever been to. You know, it contains the largest blue-footed booby population on the planet. There are days when we see dozens of sperm whales, which are not common elsewhere. We're seeing the comeback of leatherback turtles, which most people have never laid an eye on. We're still hoping to see one in the wild, but we know that they're there. And you know, the comeback of hammerhead sharks is another wonderful thing that we're seeing. So, you know, Baja California, everybody locks into this idea of Cabo, which is in many people's minds kind of US California South. But just like so many areas, you only need to get a few miles away from the hubbub, and it just turns wild and beautiful. I mean, the last two trips I were on went way up north into the Gulf of California. And up there, you literally can walk on beaches that haven't seen other traffic in 20, 30 years. And and maybe be the first one ever to, summit a peak nearby. We found a volcano that we've been watching for years and years, and I've been aching to go climb that volcano for at least a decade. The right conditions, it's an open roadstead, so meaning that there's no protection, but it was calm, flat glass. We anchored, and for the first time ever, I finally got to go up that peak. And
was it worth it?
What's that?
Was it worth it?
It was. Well, I first ran up by myself, and
okay.
I wanted to make sure it was okay. Then the next day, because we were in this one for a day and a half. Then I took a group of guests that were, definitely the more fit group. Yeah, and we summited this volcano, which was just freaking awesome.
Do you run the expeditions mostly on the Gulf of California, or you also touch the the Pacific coast as well for gray whale migration?
Yeah, right now we are just doing the Pacific coast, and our land tour has the gray whale tour availability.
Yep.
But we again are expanding not all our itineraries, but many. We're going from 7 to 10 and 10 to 14 nights, and that's happening in Baja next year as well. So we are expanding our routes to better, the idea, I think, and this is an evolution I think I'm seeing in the expedition cruise category adventure, is people are demanding longer itineraries. And while we'll always have some, Saturday to Saturdays, kind of typical cruise kind of thing, we're probably 50% of our trips are going to go to longer elements. Interesting.
And for those less familiar with Baja California, so and what kind of things you can see there, my impression, I've been very lucky to visit a couple of times outside the gray whale migration season, so I didn't really see the whales, but I saw whales, but not gray whales. I think very often the islands in the Sea of Cortés or Gulf of California are called almost like Mexico's Galapagos, but with additional things, because there's botany as well. This incredible cacti, endemic species. I think it has very high number of endemic species. It has 60% of global population of pelicans, insane variety of dolphins. You can see tuna, you can see spinner dolphins. I've never experienced huge pods of dolphins as I experienced in Baja in traveling around that part of the world. Could you talk a little bit about sort of top highlights or things that people experience when they are around there, and what kind of activities they get to do?
Yeah. Well, the thing is it's such an open array, and just like anything, it cycles with speed and time of year. But you're correct. Some of the largest groups of dolphins I've seen in my life have been in the Gulf of California, and I'm not talking 50 or 100. I'm talking thousands. And they tend to be spinners. We do get bottlenose dolphins, definitely in the sea. There's a very rare dolphin that we still haven't seen that's endemic to the area, a little tiny guy, about a meter long. I'll butcher his name. That starts with a B.
Okay.
And then there's, all the different species of whales. And the interesting thing that we're seeing is the whale populations are coming back. They used to hang out around the Cape way low, and now they're coming way up into the sea. And we're seeing humpbacks with calves almost into California in the United States by San Felipe. And we're seeing that, gray whales now inside the sea as well. So there is a migration. Other, species you mentioned, pelicans. We have several different types of pelicans. Of course, turkey vultures you see all the time. There's little tiny hummingbirds that are amazing. Number of varieties. The different cacti are just, cactus that are 50 feet tall, barrel cactus that are wider than I can put my arms around. So there's not just the species on land, but also in sea that would include, whale sharks, for instance, are a very big thing. But as any operator, you have to kind of measure, what's safe for the guests to go see, what's safe for the whale sharks to see. So we kind of cycle with, how that population is progressing. But when when Jacques Cousteau kind of called it the Galapagos of the North, Galapagos of the North, he was right. I mean, who knows that all these blue and brown-footed and red-footed boobies even exist, right? And,
or sea lions, Californian sea lions, because I think one of the things that people forget about is, I think Galapagos has snorkeling with sea lions in Galapagos is such a big thing, but you can actually do the same thing in Mexico's Baja California as well.
Absolutely.
And it's in a kind of wilder way as well.
It is. Yeah. And what we do is we, on the day that we're going to swim with the sea lions, and this is a designated area. This isn't just us picking a spot. And this is what we've worked with the park and this kind of thing. And they've opened up this one little rocky outcropping where the population of California sea lions is actually growing. And this is one of those days where we have a brunch. We get everybody up at 6 in the morning. By 7, they're on the site and they're snorkeling long before anyone else gets there or the wind picks up. It provides an exquisite experience. But, the California sea lions, for one thing, I have to tell you something we just saw for the first time. We've been getting rumors about an elephant seal for years.
Elephant seal?
Elephant seal.
Baja. Okay.
In Baja. And we're just like trying to find this guy. Our local guides who worked with me for years are telling me, Dan, it's there. And we found it. And we saw it 2 times this year. And they kind of joke amongst themselves that this elephant seal thinks it's a California sea lion because it behaves like one. I think it's just lost.
It's like a lonesome George.
Yes.
Lonesome George, lonesome elephant seal. Talking about, because I think if I remember correctly, it's not very easy from regulations point of view, to run expeditions in Baja California. There's various regulations you have to follow, and very often, because the size of your ships, you can go to places where no one else can. Can you talk a little bit about that in general for all the areas where you operate? I think I understood about the Hawaii and how traveling on a small ship is really meaningful because it's also something that the local communities want. But how does that translate in destinations like Baja California? And then I think it's about time we talk about Alaska as well, which is I know it's very close to your heart.
Yeah, and really to just outline the issues, every country of the world has their own laws on foreign flag ships and where they can go and where they can't. And then there's the part that is doing our duty, our job to just agree with the locals. So like in Hawaii, I have every right as an American to run the largest ship I want there, but we don't because the locals don't want that. They don't want to be overwhelmed by tourism on these smaller islands. But likewise, in countries like, I would say, Costa Rica and Mexico, because our capacity is so small, generally it's under 150 passengers, those countries allow the vessels to be imported. And so we actually import our vessel to Mexico and to Costa Rica, and we don't have to make an international port call because what they're saying as countries is we want this economic viability in our country. We want people to come and do this because it's good for our outdoors. It's good for our guides and this kind of thing because we use local guides there. So it's different in every area. And, so this is where even in our own industry, the larger expedition ships have a bigger challenge because they often go over that passenger capacity. So for instance, in my home in Alaska, no foreign ship of any size that's not U.S. flag can go ashore outside of a secure facility. So I know we're seeing other companies are seeing this also in Iceland and such. More restrictions coming, or really it's somewhat of an enforcement of existing law.
And in terms of let's just stay just for a couple of minutes in Baja, how do you work with local communities? I mean, is there a human element during these trips? And if so, what's it like?
You, girl, need to come with me.
I must.
So you will someday.
Tell me when.
I'll use an example. In a previous life, when I was an executive at another cruise line, I was assigned to go down and do the research and development in Baja. This was in the
Okay.
80s.
Okay.
And my wife and I went down, and we, explored before we had kids. We had motorcycles and four-wheel drives, and we took a four-wheel dirt road to a place called Agua Verde that I had read about in yachting guides. And we got stuck there, and a local took us in and fed us. And I got to know him, and he's a rancher, and his son is now the one that we work with our mule rides in Agua Verde. And that, relationship started in 1988 or 89. And to this day, when I'm there, I spend the whole day with my family.
Oh.
I will just tell you, there is something that is so good in life when you connect with people you wouldn't normally meet with. They're dirt poor, just absolutely dirt poor. And they do two things. They provide mule rides or burro rides for us and our guests, and which on every trip we operate down there. And they also provide handicrafts. And I tell my guests when I'm on board, I say, hey folks, this is going to be the one time that there's something that's not included on this trip. And I want you to bring all the cash you can muster. And I want you to buy heavily from this group, because one, it's authentic Mexican handicraft. And if you get talking with them, if you speak Spanish or they speak some broken English, you will learn their story about living out in the desert, on a ranch. And those are the kind of connections that that feed me personally. Also, those are the kind of connections our guests want to make. It was interesting that Mark Zuckerberg was anchored last week.
Really?
And he wouldn't allow, or his guides wouldn't allow his people to meet this family, and wouldn't allow them to take them on horseback, and because it wasn't super luxury. And so I sat there and I looked at my guests having this unbelievable experience. I looked at the billionaires that were out in a 500-foot yacht, and they're taking a helicopter to a golf course 100 miles away. And I'm just kind of going, wow, those people are being deprived of an experience that if they knew about it, they would want, but they're not even being allowed to have that option. I'm sorry, I'm going on a tirade here.
That's okay. Thank you.
You hear what I'm saying? You can travel to the same place and have one experience here and a real experience over here.
And I think that's the beauty of expedition cruising in general. I think majority of travelers, some destinations, expedition ships travel to that offer tourism on board larger ships, on land-based, but the way you experience it is so different, because there's such a deeper connection to the place, and through education, through connections with the people as well. I think it's time to talk about Alaska. What do you think? Yeah.
What was that?
Let's talk about Alaska.
Oh,
that's your bread and butter, and also something that is clearly part of your DNA, and a destination very, very close to your heart. Tell me a little bit more about UnCruise in Alaska and what Alaska means for UnCruise Adventures.
Well, it is our heart and our soul. We're a Jewish-based company, always have been. And, it's Alaska. There's the Alaska flag song. It ends with these words. It goes, Alaskans flag to Alaskans dear, the simple flag of the last frontier. And we believe in that. And, the reality is Alaska is so huge. And this is one of the challenges. Most people don't comprehend. They think, well, I'm going to go to Alaska and check it. Well, Alaska is as big as the whole west coast of the United States and more. There's more shoreline in Alaska, the entire lower 48 of the United States. So, these opportunities to go to Alaska, it's almost like you have to see Alaska 3 or 4 different times because of geographic regions. But Alaska to us is the ultimate litmus test for our company, my company. And that means the freedom to be flexible and one of the things that I learned early on is that the itinerary is almost meaningless, because we do our best to design an itinerary 2 years in advance when it's published, but then you get there and the wind's out of the south or out of the north, and it changes everything. And we could either put people on that itinerary or we could do what's right. And so when I meet my guests at the dock in front of our office, I grab a brochure and I say, "This is what we printed," and I throw it out and get rid of it and tell people the best thing you can do is go with an open mind, because we're going to give you the best trip that's available this week or this next 2 weeks, not necessarily what's printed. And I kind of mock my own marketing and say, that's marketing. This
is your trip.
Yeah,
so
because,
yeah, I apologize, I interrupted you.
No, you're good.
So let's talk about Alaska as an expedition cruise place, because I think there's no doubt, I think it's #1 large cruise destination in Northern America, and it is a place that I think is very popular with British travelers as well. But the way, I think, like many places that are outside Europe, it just has very often not necessarily a single-minded way of how you should be exploring it, but a quite restrictive list of ways people think they will experience Alaska. The Rocky Mountaineer, then you get on board the ship and travel for 7 days. Firstly, tell me how your Alaska is different from that Alaska. And secondly, I would like to touch a little bit on the season, because I think majority of large ships or, passing by vessels will typically have a season that starts around, correct me if I'm wrong, end of May, will finish early September. And if you could just talk through what you guys do, make a case for different times of the year, and anything else you'd like to tell us about Alaska UnCruise Way.
Well, thank you, because, obviously, back when the cruise ships first started coming to Alaska, and when I was, in my 20s, there were a handful of maybe a dozen at the most cruise ships that came, and they have set the pace, in other words, of what public perception is. Yep. And it is important that we not look at public perception, but actually, as you're saying, kind of go down to what the truth of what you can do. So, for instance, the advantage of a small expedition company like ours, which happens to be U.S. flagged, is we can land any place we desire, pretty much anywhere, because we're U.S. flag, and there are rules that allow us to do that. The foreign flag ships can't do that. And so the big ships basically are on they come from Seattle or Vancouver, and they steam for 2 days, almost 2 days each direction. Out of oftentimes a 7-day trip, you might have 3 days that you're not even in Alaska. And so the advantage to a company like mine is that you can fly right into Alaska and literally hop off the plane, and you're in our hands, and we're gone that day. But I think as far as what expedition brings to Alaska is a stark difference compared to the large ship cruise line, which is primarily looking at port calls and maybe a day of pseudo fjord work or glaciers. It's pretty limited. Sometimes it's a nice start to see Alaska from a very inexpensive manner, and then come back and explore later. So we get a lot of people that travel aboard the monster cruise ships that see our little boat in Glacier Bay, and kayaks out and paddleboards out, people up on a peak over here, and they go by and they're just steaming to get out of Glacier Bay in time to make their next port call. So we get a lot of those passengers go, "Oh, that's me. This is not me. I want to be there."
Yeah. Okay. And talking about different times of the year, when do you start your trips and when do you finish them, and what's the appeal of being in Alaska at the very beginning of the season, at the very end of it?
Well, because Alaska is so big, you have to look at region kind of separately as one stop. But let's see, would this be right? Yeah. This is Southeast Alaska, way down here, and the peninsula and the Aleutians. So we're in Southeast Alaska. Really, the driest time of year is mid-April to mid-May, early June, because we get a lot of rain. It's a rainforest.
Yeah.
So if dry weather is important to you, it's early season. And early season, you have a high likelihood of seeing bears down on the beach, but you have a lower likelihood of seeing the massive whales that would be there in June, July, August. That said, there's always every month of the year has humpbacks in Southeast Alaska.
Okay.
The biologists used to not believe it when we would tell them there are whales here. No, they're all in Hawaii and in Mexico. Well, what they found is these older whales and the very young stay because they have no reason to go to the birthing grounds or mating grounds. So anyway, we do see whales in April. The myth is in the United States, particularly, is that we have this thing that we all grow up with called Indian summers, when summer just seems to last into September and October. That rarely happens in October in Alaska, even in Southeast. A lot of the big cruise ship brands are running in October, and I would never operate my guests in October. And yeah, it just maybe halfway down the BC coast would be fine on the way to Seattle or something. October, it shouldn't be operated, in my opinion. So I mean that's a weather thing. But as you go further north, like up in where we operate in Prince William Sound and the Aleutians, that is more of the traditional kind of mid to late May to early September window. It's tighter because you're further north.
And Aleutians, if I remember correctly, is a great place in addition to marine life, and actually like Unalaska, I think is a very interesting town to visit and learn about the peoples of that remote part of the world. But it's also great for migratory seabirds. I don't think a lot of people appreciate how insane that side of things is, right?
And it is insane. I mean, you going back to my little finger drawing, you go out the peninsula here, and there's this curve up into the Bering Sea that has to happen. And all those critters, whether they be birds or marine mammals or whatnot, have to go around that corner. So you get out towards Unalaska or False Pass or any of those Unga in the Shimogan Islands. All this sea life and bird life gathers, and it is one of the most phenomenal experiences of life. And you see a lot of different types of whales. This gets back to sometimes seeing beaked whales, which are really hard to find in the wild. But again, the joy is, not only seeing that stuff off Unga Village, but also going ashore and seeing the remnants of an area that was hit by a tidal wave, and crawling up on a peak that you can actually go under in a kayak, and because there's arch. And
I think few people as well realize how incredibly the history of the place is just fascinating. The whole sort of World War II and just the whole sort of Russia-US interaction, and it's just phenomenal. And as well as the indigenous communities that live that in that part of the world. Or I think I'm not very familiar with the TV show, but there is apparently this TV show documentary in States where about halibut fishermen and Unalaska and just that madness. Anyway, we don't have a time for that. Because our time is sort of running out, but I had a couple of questions, because I know that this year UnCruise Adventures, correct me if I'm wrong, is celebrating 30-year anniversary. What are you most proud of in those 30 years?
Well, my team is the first always. I mean, my team is freaking off the shelf, and so it's the people factor. I think the other things that I'm most proud of is that we've been able to change minds. UnCruise is available to anybody, whatever they believe. And I have had, people on the boats that were supporting timber harvests of the Tongass in a massive way, and leave the boat telling me I will never support that again. And, so to me, the environment that we have out there is to be cherished. And not that we don't need, I'm all for select cut logging and things that are sustainable, but the joy of being able to sit at a table and actually have a real discussion about the importance of saving our natural world, and have somebody change their mind because you are willing to sit and talk with them rather than post a meme on social media, it is one of the things that's most settling for me. But at the end of the day, it's just like all of it, it's the human connections, and that's something I will cherish until my last day.
And you have spoken many times about passion and purpose and curiosity and engagement with the, locals. And so after a lifetime on the water, if I may say so, what still excites you? I mean, what's next? What keeps pushing you forward?
Yeah, the joy about being an independent small business person is you can say no or yes, because I make the decisions, right? I'm not reporting to a board of investors. And so the joy for me is I can say, I don't think that's our destination. I can say that is not an UnCruise destination. I can say this one is. How do we get permission to go there? And these are the kind of things that I love. So as my job changes, I don't have any plans on retiring soon, but I do have plans on changing my job and taking the opportunity to take over our product development 100%. And these type of things, which I find a lot of joy in, but also helps the pace of the company. But as far as the future goes, we're returning to some of our destinations we've been at for years. We're actively looking for ships to expand the model. I would someday love to. I'm just enthralled with the Great Lakes and part of the Eastern Seaboard, and so I would love to get there someday. I'd love to get further in. I'd like to go back to the Orinoco someday. Maybe political things will change to where we can go back to the Orinoco. I think that's another area that is so diverse and different, but obviously doesn't work right now with the world situation in Venezuela. But so there are plenty. I do kind of like, at this point, I don't see us necessarily going outside North and South America immediately. Yeah.
I think there's plenty, around those two continents that very exciting things can happen if political situation changes and enables us to be able to travel further and deeper. Before I finish today, I wanted to open the floor to listeners. If anyone has any questions to Captain Dan, now is your moment to ask away before I ask my very last question. Not sure if there's anyone at all would like to ask. No. How are you celebrating the 30th anniversary? And how can trade get involved? Are you involving trade in the celebrations?
That's a good point. Well, I can tell you that we're having a big celebration on my people. I work with and have worked with for many years, some of our vendors and this kind of thing, here next month. And we're going to have our big 30th celebration there. Some of the guys I started and gals that started the business with me are going to be there. And they've all retired years ago. But it's going to be fun.
Brilliant. We did actually have one question now. When do you plan to start the Columbia River cruises again?
The fall of 2028.
Fall 2028. Thank you very much.
It'll be very early September through around the 1st of November.
Brilliant.
Right at the time, great time, and it's not too hot. It's kind of the perfect window down there.
Brilliant. I think this is it from me probably. I know that you have some great offers at the moment for I think the discounts to travel with UnCruise Adventures as part of the Wave deal. So please look up on our website. We shared as well our Wave offers brochure. It's a great opportunity to book your clients on one of the UnCruise Adventures trips. And I personally cannot wait to, at some point in my lifetime, to get to experience it, because I'm hearing so much, and I absolutely love the brand. So thank you so much for your time today, and for an excellent conversation and a glimpse into UnCruise, as always. Can't wait to see you back at our conference. Thank you, Captain Dan.
Well, know that you and your hubby are going to be aboard with me in Mexico, in the Gulf. Let's do that. Can we make that a plan?
Let's make that as a plan. I'm all up for it. Thank you. And the recording will also be available on our YouTube channel. Do check it out, guys. Thanks for giving us your time, and happy celebrations next month for this very special anniversary, Captain Dan. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.